Okay. Ready to go, Charles?
All right, everybody, Charles is ready, so let's give him a round of applause and welcome him to the Galoy stage.
Hi. Just want to make sure. Oh, okay. And perfect. All right. So good morning, everyone. My name is Charles, and I'm the CEO and founder of Sats for AI. But today I want to talk about Bitcoin and open source AI in general. So just like with Bitcoin, you need to deeply understand the existing system so that you can see its flaws, and then you understand how Bitcoin addresses them. I'd like to follow a similar logic here. So I'm going to be spending a fair amount of time talking about closed AI, and then the benefits of open source AI will become apparent. And then I'll conclude with potential synergies with Bitcoin. So in his novel 1984, Orwell wrote about a dystopian future where war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. But ironically, in 2023, open AI is closed AI. So what do I mean by closed AI? Basically, it's whenever a corporation develops a model and then owns it and keeps it for itself, and obviously sells it. There's nothing really wrong with that logic. The problem is eventually how it turns out for the users. So just a brief overview here, and I'll dive deeper into each of those points. But basically, it's permissioned. It has conflicting incentives with the users. And finally, it's easily corruptible. So what do I mean by permissioned? Basically, you need to register to start using it. So that means that at any given point, unilaterally, they can decide to close your account. Maybe they don't like what you said on social media. Maybe they don't like the way you've been using it. They can close your account. And you might think, well, this is not like social networks, not like I have followers. You close my account, I'll just open a new one. Well, they might also decide to refuse new users at one point. Or they could even go as far as shutting down an entire country. So what I mean here is, essentially, they're acting as gatekeepers. They get to decide who uses it and who doesn't. It's not like an open protocol. It's not like Bitcoin, where everyone's free to join. They decide who joins. And that goes even further if you looked at the advanced version of OpenAI. So this one requires a credit card. So I'm sure as Bitcoiners, we all know that the financial privileges are not fairly and evenly distributed across this planet. There are many areas of the world where credit card adoption is very low. Africa, for example, is less than 10%. In that scenario, no credit card, you guessed it, no soup for you. So if you are a very talented developer somewhere in Africa, and you have this great idea of an app that you want to develop that could bring a ton of value to your community, well, hopefully it doesn't require very advanced AI tech as part of your tech stack. If not, you just don't get to develop it. And that brings me to my next point, which is about their business model. But what I want to highlight in that slide that I'm about to talk about is the conflicting incentives means that whatever is best for them is not necessarily what is best for you as a user. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the sentence, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. So to understand the incentives, let's look at their business model. So basically, they have two versions of the product. One that is paid, that is used by, according to some study and estimates on their mobile platform, which I think translates across their services. It's 0.44% of people that are paying for it. So that gives you access to the latest AI model. And there's two ways that you can access it. Either as a chat, which is meant for everyday user, at which point you pay $20 per month. And that obviously is very easy to understand, or the incentives are not aligned, because the more you use it, the less profit they make. So what they want is for you to pay and use it very little. What you want is pay and use it as much as possible. A more fair approach would be, if you use it a little bit, you pay a little bit because you only get a little bit of value out of it. But if you use it a lot, then you pay more because you're getting more value. Now, to be fair, this is kind of how they've set up their other way that you can access the advanced part, which is through the API. But this is meant for, obviously, developers. This is not for everyday users. And the issue is, they've set it up as you pay per API calls, but you've essentially written a blank check to them. So you give your credit card, and at the end of the month, whatever they decide that you owe them, this is what you're going to have to pay. So you better hope that if you've incorporated this into your product, Your users, in turn, every time they make that call, they will pay you or they will generate you some revenue. You also better hope that they won't find a way to abuse the API, or that they won't get hacked. Your customers could get hacked. You could get hacked. OpenAI could get hacked, and then you would rack up tens of thousands of dollars at the end of the month that you would have to pay because this is how it's been set up. Another point is, as you're paying, you need to give a credit card, as we've said, but you also need to give the corresponding name and invoice address. So you've essentially doxed yourself to OpenAI. Now, the majority of you, actually 99.56% of you, probably think, well, I only use the free version, so that's okay. They don't know who I am. I don't care about the incentives. It's different. But there's a lot of things that they still know about you. Because you're registered, you have an account to which they can link any request that you're going to type. So you are essentially giving them a ton of information about yourself, about your interest, potentially your medical history, medical questions that you might be asking, your work, and by work I don't just mean this is where I work. They can infer from what you're typing your position in the company, the exact project that you might be working on. They can pretty much get your job description just by looking at the questions that you're asking that are related to your work. And maybe they could go even further. Maybe you are sharing as a user information about your company that maybe you shouldn't. Now, if you tie this to your IP on top of it, they basically know everything about you. So what's wrong with that? This is what I call you are the product square. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the sentence, if it's free, you are the product, that was so brilliantly described in the documentary Social Dilemma a couple of years back. Well, this is this on steroid. Because now it's not just trying to infer what your interests are based on your likes and your behavior. No, you are yourself typing and describing in great details what you care about, how you see this issue, and your point of view on that specific topic. So it's the deepest understanding that we've ever had about you yourself as a user. And as you can see from the answers that you're getting, they're fully getting it. It's not just like some data that is somewhere. The model is able to answer based on what you're saying. So that means the model will understand and is able to translate this into, again, very specific attributes about you and your personality. This is where I like to use the line that we see in police movies. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say will be used against you. Well, potentially this could be used against you. How? Ads is the most basic way that we can understand. So you can imagine a future where ads could be displayed either internally. So you ask your prompt, and above and below, a la Google, you would have ads based on what you just prompted. It could be even directly in the answer, somewhere subtle, more or less. But much more likely, it would be to third party. I don't know how, if everybody here is aware of how data and publicity works online, but basically there are data brokers that are kind of gathering all the information that they can get, and then they are the ones who decide the ads that you see online. So this way, you wouldn't even know. Like, they would just sell this data to third party, and you wouldn't even realize it. They would probably just change their terms and conditions, but given no one reads them, you would probably not even know. But again, because it'd be so specific to you, so tailored to you, and so deeply understanding your personality, this would be very, very effective ads that would essentially be triggered to make you act a certain way. Now, some of you might think, ads are okay, I'm smart, I don't fall for ads, or it's a business model that's been around, this is how the world goes, I don't really care about ads, fine. But what about opinions? What about now, what they're trying to do is change your opinion. Every time you ask a prompt, slowly, surely, they kind of push you in a specific direction to change your mind. Maybe to make you vote a certain way. And I'm not saying necessarily OpenAI is trying to do this. We've seen it with Cambridge Analytica. Someone found a way to use Facebook in a way that it wasn't supposed to play a political game. So maybe this happens here again. But let me go one step further. We've seen with the Twitter files that the US government and potentially other governments across the planet went to centralized platform to ask them to push for a specific narrative without disclaiming that they were doing that. So this is the issue with centralized black box, is you don't know why you get to see this. And it'd be a similar problem here. You ask a question, you see the answer, but you don't know if the answer comes from the actual model or if it was a pre-programmed hard-coded response that maybe the government has asked, if anyone asks a question about that topic, this is the answer I want you to give. You would there'd be no way for you to know if this is where the answer comes from. Maybe even the government says, and also I would like you to keep a list of whoever's asking that question. That's another possibility. Going a little, one step maybe a little less further, but this step I can illustrate, so maybe it will make everything even more clear. But what if you start asking questions about OpenAI's own interest? There'd be, again, no way for you to know. So I don't want to turn this into a personal attack, but here are the facts. So OpenAI CEO is Sam Altman. He was also one of the founders of WorldCoin. So an altcoin, to stay polite, because I'm being recorded, that literally requires you to scan your eyeball so that you can get the token. Now, just to pause here for a second, how much more permission and data tracking does it get? And do you think that the same guy who used that approach for his altcoin would hesitate if it came on the table that he had to do something like this for OpenAI? Would he say, oh no way, this is too far? Or would he say, yeah, sure, up to you to decide? But back to my main point. What if you start asking ChatGPT questions about Sam Altman? How do you know that the answer that you're getting is the answer from the model, or if it's an hard-coded answer? So this is what I did. I asked ChatGPT first, who is Sam Altman? And then I asked, are there allegations against him? And I got the very basic answer. As of my cutoff date of September 21, I'm not aware of any specific allegations. Look, so I don't know. Again, maybe this is what the model really said. Maybe OpenAI has asked, if anyone's asked anything about Sam, this is the answer you give. I don't know. What I do know is that when I asked the same question to an open source model like Llama 2, this is what I got. So note that most of them predate the 2021 cutoff date in my previous answer. So look, those are just allegations. They're not, he hasn't been convicted of anything as far as I know. But that wasn't my question. My question was has he been convicted? Are there allegations? And I like this answer a lot better, obviously. It sounds a lot more neutral. It's giving me the facts, and it even wraps up with a kind of like a neutral approach of saying, it's important to also know that he's been praised for his accomplishment, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I don't know about you, but I like this answer a lot better. So quick recap here about closed AI. We've seen that it's permission, it has conflicting incentives, and it's corruptible. Yet, the road to success was paved. Their number of users is incredible. They are the fastest app to 100 million users. The investment that they received and the valuations are record-breaking. And the media attention is like point-blank ridiculous. To this day, we're getting hundreds of articles every day telling us how great OpenAI. Some of them are saying, it's dangerous or whatever, but like the media coverage overall is crazy. So to me, as a Bitcoiner, knowing this and seeing this, it was a little, depressing for me. But thankfully, in March of 2023, a group of AI experts from Stanford, using an open source data set, mostly their expertise, and basically ChatGPT to kind of reverse engineer it, they were able to produce, for a total cost of $600, a model that reproduces 76% of ChatGPT's performance. Now what's even greater is they made this open source. So a week later, another team took that project and improved it, and this time reached, we can't really see, but 92% to ChatGPT's 100%. Almost on par with Google Bard, which Google spent hundreds of millions of dollars developing. Those guys did for $600 in computational cost. And it didn't stop there. Because it was open source, teams after teams and month after month, people were coming out with new models that just kept getting better and better and better. And it's still going on to see. And that was very hopeful again for me. It's still beautiful to see. But in July, we reached a milestone with the release of Llama 2. So what do I mean by a milestone? First of all, there's no easy way an objective way to compare two models. So what you can do is give it a specific task and then to each of them, and then ask humans, which answer did you prefer? based on different factors. So here it was about helpfulness. So this study asked a bunch of questions and then showed them to humans, blind test, this is the answer, which one do you prefer? And it turns out that the most of the preferred answers were from Llama 2 compared to ChatGPT. And if you go one step further and you take at the tie, which is about 30% again, so now we're looking at 2/3 of users that when you show them an answer to a question, they find that the most helpful answer was either Llama or on par with ChatGPT. So now we were comparing against ChatGPT, the free version. But what's really interesting is if you start to look at summarization, which is one of the tasks that those large language models are really good at. So basically, they took 100,000 words text, which is essentially a book, and they would summarize them using the models, and then they would ask humans, do you think the summary is representative of the actual initial text? And here, Llama 2 blew out of the water the free version of ChatGPT and was within inches of the paid version of OpenAI. And also on par with very average human. Some of you might recognize the picture's pretty bad, but this is the average human. So what's even more interesting is if you start to look at cost. So now you're looking at efficiency. What about cost? So this is the summarization approach is one that the context window is too big. So you couldn't use it on the $20 per month approach. You had to use the API. And it cost over $5 to do that summary of 100,000 words with OpenAI ChatGPT-4, GPT-4. And it cost 19 cents with Llama 2. So this is a 29x difference. And again, on very, very similar performance. So what could explain this cost? Why is it so expensive on GPT? So they're not a publicly traded company, so you don't get to see the full details of their costs. But I put some numbers together for perspective. So first of all, they received $11.3 billion in VC funding. So to anyone who's ever looked into startups, you don't raise money because you like it. You don't raise money because it's fun. You raise money because you need it. And not because you're going to need it in 10 years, because you're going to need it in the next 2 years, most likely. So, within the next couple of years, this is the money they will have burned, $11.3 billion. And another number, again, to put that number in perspective, VC funding are expecting 10x on this investment that they're making. So at $20 per month per user, it would take 47 million users, paying again $20 a month, for 10 years to generate a revenue that's equivalent to what those guys are expecting in return. And given the 0.44% percentage of people that are paying, it requires 10.7 billion total users to generate those 47 million paying users. So basically everyone on this planet, plus some, have to start using ChatGPT for them to generate that amount of revenue. So obviously, the numbers are not sustainable. Something's going to have to change. Either they will start to charge way more than $20 per month. Either they would get rid of the free version. They will have to increase significantly the conversion rate. Or they will have to start looking at other revenue streams, and maybe that ad revenue model that I was describing before comes in handy. Who knows? On the other end, open source models are permissionless. Anyone can use them. You can download them. You can start running them. They're private if you're running them properly. And I don't really want to say neutral because we don't know the data that have been used to train it, but at least it's verifiable. At least you can know that you're using the model and the model only, and there's no pre-coded answers in there. Now they do come with their technical challenges. You have to run them locally mostly, so that requires a GPU and a pretty powerful computer. You need to adjust the parameters, which could be intimidating. And there's new models weekly, and some of the models are meant for different tasks, so it could be a little overwhelming for the everyday users. But so this is basically, those challenges is what we're looking to address with Sats4AI. But back to the main topic, you can see, based on those three attributes, it's very easy to see the parallel with Bitcoin and where those values match. I want to take it one step further and look at how they actually create a synergy. So we've seen that if you're using closed source AI and you're paying for it in credit card, we have those three attributes. What about if those guys start accepting Bitcoin as their payment? Or you find a third party that is willing to kind of play the intermediary and you pay in Bitcoin and you use ChatGPT. Well, you've only solved the kind of KYC data tracking problem. It's still permission and it's still corruptible. On the other end, if you start to use open source AI models that are, again, to remove the technical barrier, you're hosting them, and you're paying for them in credit card, well, you've only removed the corruptible aspect, but you're still permission to the fact that you need a credit card, and you're potentially still getting KYC and data tracking. So it's only when you combine the two and you move to open source AI models served online with Bitcoin that you get a permissionless, a private, and incorruptible tool. Now I'd like to conclude with the words of a very wise man. The computer can be used as a tool to liberate and protect people rather than control them. And this is exactly, to me, what Bitcoin and open source AI can accomplish. But for that, we need to stop using closed AI. So please, 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 start using open source AI. Use them on Sats for AI, run them locally, run them any way that you can, that works for you. But please move away from slave tech so that we can all enjoy freedom tech. Thank you very much. We have questions here? Yeah.
Hello, hello, hello.
Here you go.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for your amazing presentation. Speaking about GPT-4, we know those who have used GPT-4 have noticed that it has been dumbed down to being more stupid, and I guess the best performance was around May, June. And has any open source model in more complex reasoning tasks than just summarization of a text come any close to what GPT-4 used to be?
Yeah, so this is one of the challenges. Again, there's different models, so they're optimizing for different use cases. And the beauty is they're becoming less complex because they're only trying to achieve one task, right? So there are much smaller models that are, again, less expensive to run, much faster, and give incredible results. So overall, yes, it's greatly improving. Now it's just a matter of essentially maybe having some sort of agent on top of it that you as a user, you don't know all the models, but you say, this is what I want to do, and that agent would decide what model is best for your use case. And then you get like then it's game over.
Does Sats for AI perform this aggregation and optimization?
Not yet. We're making it easy to choose. So we say, different tasks, and we kind of list like what this model is good for, and we try to limit the number of models that we offer so that it's very easy to understand. But the next step on our roadmap is to have that kind of like one agent where you would come up and say, I'm looking to do this, and it would automatically choose the right models, potentially different models, right? So if it's a complex task, it would say, I'm going to use this model for this model for this model for this, and then give you the final answer.
Amazing, thank you. Do you have any positions open?
Sure, we can start talking.
Hi.
Hi.
What do you use to benchmark these models, the open source models, against GPT? At Stackwork, we use both, and we've noticed for certain tasks, especially entity extraction from a body of text when we need it in a specific output, Llama 2 is much more inconsistent with its output format, for example. So do you do like very detailed task-specific benchmarking?
Right. So we don't benchmark ourselves. We don't want to even offer ChatGPT. We are only looking at open source AI. So we're looking at other people benchmarking them to kind of tell, and then we obviously test them internally. And most of the time, when I use it, it's similar to what you're doing. I run both. I run ChatGPT, I run Llama, and I see which one was best. And honestly, most of the time, it's about 50-50. So we're getting there.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
No problem. Yeah, one more question.
If you're familiar with GP Utopia, and
Yes.
they do a little bit of the market, so I have a question about what hardware are you running this on? Where is that running? And do you also plan to do similarly with a market for selling compute as
Yeah,
well?
that's an excellent question. So right now we're hosting it. Obviously, we're trying to get as light an infrastructure as possible, but that's one of the again roadmap thing that we want to do is we want to decentralize how we're hosting it. So GPT Utopia. There's also a program called Petals, which is essentially like torrents to run on different GPUs. So if we can get those answers across different platforms, then that definitely another step in the right direction. So we're keeping a close eye on this.
Hi, have you got any plans to offer fine-tuning services or prompt engineering?
Not really at this point. We're really trying to make this as user-friendly as possible, so we're not really gearing this to tech-savvy people. We want to offer the counterpart to ChatGPT. You just go and you chat. You're not a tech-savvy person. You're not a developer. You just want to use something handy. And so that's the alternative that we're looking for. So fine-tuning obviously falls more in the latter categories of developers. But maybe, again, in the long term. All right, I think that concludes for right now. So thank you very much, and feel free to come and chat about anything Bitcoin related. Thank you.